China's latest naval pride, the Fujian aircraft carrier, is being hyped as a rival to the USS Gerald R, a symbol of China's growing naval power. But here's the reality: it's a total disaster. Despite its impressive size and sleek look, the Fujian is all show and no substance, plagued with critical flaws that cripple its capabilities. How did China's dream of naval supremacy fall apart? Let's break down why this so-called marvel is already China's biggest naval disaster. Let's set one thing straight right away. For most other navies around the world, the Fujian would be considered a significant achievement, a powerful aircraft carrier with advanced capabilities. After all, only 9 other countries in the world even own active aircraft carriers: France, India, Italy, Japan, Spain, Thailand, Turkey, the UK, and the US. According to James Marquez, a defense analyst at Global Data, the Fujian is certainly more advanced than ships developed by France and the UK. Even in the context of China's past naval accomplishments, the Fujian represents a major step up from previous Shandong and Liaoning designs. However, when you stack it up against the US Navy's fleet, particularly the Gerald R Ford-class carriers it's meant to rival, the Fujian falls woefully short. The same applies when you view this ship in the context of the grand promises made and the expectations it was supposed to fulfill. What was touted as a revolutionary leap in naval power has turned out to be a disappointing letdown, failing to deliver on its lofty ambitions. But to understand how this could possibly happen, we must go back in time, back to when the US and China first developed aircraft carriers. For the US, this would take us back to 1922, when the USS Langley was commissioned as America's first aircraft carrier, marking the beginning of a tradition that would evolve into a fleet of cutting-edge carriers defining naval supremacy. For China, we would only need to go back to 2012. Yes, you heard that correctly, 90 years later. China's naval carrier program began with the launch of the Liaoning on September 25, 2012. But get this, the Liaoning wasn't even a new design. It was a refurbished Soviet carrier, the Varyag, bought from Ukraine and retrofitted for Chinese use. If you want to know about the first aircraft carrier China actually built from scratch, we would have to travel a few years into the future, to December 17, 2019, when the Shandong aircraft carrier was commissioned. That's not even 5 years ago. But now you probably understand what we're getting at. Despite the impressive strides China has made with the Fujian, the country's carrier program is still in its infancy compared to more than a century of US Navy experience and technological advancement. Simply put, the Fujian's shortcomings reflect the growing pains of a nation still learning the ropes of naval aviation. That's why it's even more bizarre how China, and frankly even some Western commentators, have gone about describing the Fujian. This aircraft has been described as a naval powerhouse, a major threat to US naval supremacy, and as the technology that will catapult China's naval power. So that's precisely the lens through which we need to view the reality of the Fujian. Although, to be honest, it's almost surprising that China hasn't managed to achieve its ambitious goals, given the substantial investments it's poured into the People's Liberation Army Navy, or PLAN for short, as well as other branches of the military. It's all part of Chinese President Xi Jinping's so-called Chinese dream of transforming the country into a global superpower with unrivaled military prowess. To that end, between 2019 and 23, Beijing's defense expenditure was recorded at a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR for short, of 7.5%. In 2023, the CAGR stood at $230.3 billion. This impressive rate is forecast to continue with a CAGR of 6.6%, reaching an estimated $323.7 billion by 2028. When you dive into the specifics, the numbers become even more impressive. Let's take the PLAN's investment in the Type 052D destroyers as an example. Between 2023 and 28, this investment is expected to grow at a CAGR of 17.09%, rising from $765 million to over $1.6 billion. This substantial investment contrasts sharply with US spending on Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, which is projected to decline at a CAGR of -37.76% during the same period. All in all, China's Ministry of National Defense is projected to spend $1.4 trillion from 2024 to 28 on producing military hardware and modernizing its forces. Talk about a massive financial commitment. But let's see what all this money has actually delivered to China. It's time to finally meet the Fujian. The Fujian was named after the province where President Xi honed his political career, following the tradition of naming carriers after regions of strategic importance. The Liaoning was named after a northeastern province serving as a crucial navy base and a gateway to the Yellow Sea, while the Shandong took its name from the province where China's first aircraft carrier was based, a region that's played a major role in Chinese history. Interestingly, the Fujian's namesake, the Fujian province, is located on China's southwestern coast, directly opposite Taiwan, across the Taiwan Strait. Knowing China, naming the most powerful aircraft carrier in the PLAN's fleet after this province certainly isn't a coincidence but a clear message. Taiwan is the focal point of the country's military posture in the region. That's why the Fujian is also expected to bolster the PLAN's East Sea Fleet, which oversees the Taiwan Strait. Construction of the Fujian began in the mid-2010s at the Jiangnan shipyard, with initial work starting around March 2015. After some delays, including issues with the electromagnetic catapults, which we'll discuss later in the video, the carrier's build progressed steadily. By September 2020, the keel and base hull blocks were largely in place, and by July 2021, the superstructure was completed. The Fujian was officially launched on June 17, 2022. On May 1, 2024, it completed its maiden voyage, with subsequent sea trials aimed at testing its propulsion and power systems lasting until May 9th, reportedly some 60 miles east of Shanghai. The fourth among these sea trials took place in September 2024, signaling that the Fujian is close to officially entering China's active aircraft carrier fleet. For comparison's sake, Liaoning underwent 10 sea trials before going into service, according to China Daily. This aligns with the Pentagon's projections, which anticipate the Fujian's commissioning within 2024. However, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense predicts a 2025 entry into service after the completion of additional navigation tests. Regardless of the exact date, one thing's for sure. The Fujian is set to become China's largest warship, a testament to the substantial investments made in modernizing the PLAN. Now let's take a look at the characteristics of this much-anticipated vessel and how it stacks up against its American counterparts and Chinese predecessors. An important note before we start: the exact specifications of China's Fujian-class aircraft carrier, also referred to as Type 003, remain largely undisclosed, as Beijing meticulously safeguards its capabilities. However, the US Office for Naval Intelligence has managed to provide some valuable insights into its features, giving us a glimpse into what the Fujian has to offer and, let's be honest, what the vessel lacks. To the untrained eye, the Fujian and the Ford might seem nearly identical, as China's design closely mimics its American counterpart. In fact, the exterior similarities are so pronounced that anyone could be forgiven for confusing one for the other. However, this surface resemblance masks the significant disparities in their actual capabilities and performance. Let's start with the size. Given that the Fujian and the Ford are nearly identical in appearance, it shouldn't be surprising that their lengths don't differ much. The Ford, with its impressive length of 1,092 feet and width of 255 feet, is only slightly larger than the Fujian, which measures 1,036 feet in length and 249 feet in width. This makes the Fujian roughly as long as China's earlier carriers, the Liaoning and Shandong, which span about 1,033 feet. These carriers are comparable to the Kitty Hawk class carriers of the US Navy, which were 1,047 feet long and displaced about 83,000 tons. Speaking of displacement, this is where more substantial differences become apparent. The Ford, displacing approximately 100,000 tons with a full combat load, significantly outweighs the Fujian, which has an estimated displacement of around 80 to 85,000 tons, putting it in the same weight range as the Kitty Hawk class. Now, what difference does 20,000 tons truly make? Well, a lot. The weight difference affects various critical aspects of the carrier performance. The Ford's additional 20,000 tons means it sits lower in the water, which, in turn, translates to a lower center of gravity. Vessels with a lower center of gravity experience enhanced stability, which allows them to handle more aggressive maneuvers with greater control. This increased stability also means reduced rolling and pitching, thus providing a steadier platform for flight operations, as well as better performance in rough seas. Essentially, the Ford's greater displacement not only improves its maneuverability and stability, but also supports a larger air wing and more extensive onboard facilities, which we'll also discuss later on. It's also important to note that while the USS Gerald R. Ford might be the focus of attention, it's not the only US Navy aircraft carrier that surpasses the Fujian in size. The Nimitz-class carriers, which precede the Ford class, also displace over 100,000 tons, making the Fujian just the third largest aircraft carrier class globally. So much for world dominance. The last of the exterior elements we'll discuss before diving into operational capabilities is the design and layout of the carrier. In this regard, the Fujian's notable features reflect both Western influences and unique Chinese innovations. The Fujian's flight deck adheres closely to Western standards, incorporating an angled landing area and a side island. However, unlike its US counterparts, the Fujian is equipped with only two elevators, one located in front of the island and the other behind it on the starboard side. This limited number of elevators suggests that the Fujian has a smaller aircraft complement compared to the US carriers, which typically feature 3 elevators to facilitate more efficient aircraft handling and operations. Still, the Fujian has made some strides in this department. Examining the imagery of the Fujian reveals a single, pyramidal-shaped island positioned just aft of the vessel's center. This design choice highlights the carrier's focus on optimizing aircraft operations rather than maximizing ship maneuverability. This layout contrasts with other naval designs, such as the French Navy's Charles de Gaulle, which places its island more toward the fore, or the UK Royal Navy's Queen Elizabeth-class carriers, which feature 2 islands designed for conducting separate operations. In the Fujian's island, you'll find the ship's primary radars and sensors, integrated into a streamlined structure to reduce radar cross-section, well, at least as much as it's possible for an 80,000-ton warship. This setup includes panels for the ship's active electronically scanned array radar and other critical sensors. This island also houses the Fujian's integrated funnel, facilitating the expulsion of gases from the carrier's combined gas and diesel drive system, which powers the electromagnetic catapults for launching aircraft. But enough with the technicalities and design specifics. Let's shift gears to what everyone's really eager to know about: the Fujian's arsenal, air wing, and advanced technology implementations. Spoiler alert, the Fujian falls short compared to its US counterpart in every single one of these categories. First up, the armament. The USS Gerald R is equipped with a formidable array of self-defense systems designed to counter various threats. For close-in defense, there are 2 elevated Sea Sparrow launchers and 2 rolling airframe missile ram launchers, offering robust protection against incoming missiles. Complementing these are 3 20mm Phalanx close-in weapon systems, or COWS, which can fire thousands of rounds per minute to absolutely shred approaching threats. For surface threats, the Ford is armed with 4 25mm Bushmaster chain guns and 4 50-caliber machine guns, capable of engaging small boats and attack craft. We also can't discuss the Ford's weaponry without mentioning its advanced electronic warfare capabilities, highlighted by the so-called Slick 32 Victor 6 system, which integrates both active and passive measures to detect, track, and neutralize threats through sophisticated radar and electromagnetic techniques. Additionally, the Ford is equipped with decoy launchers to mislead incoming missiles, as well as a Nixie towed torpedo decoy system, which is designed to confuse and deflect torpedo attacks, providing an additional layer of protection against underwater threats. And then there's the Fujian's weaponry, best summarized in a single expression: close, but not quite. While modern, the Fujian's self-defense capabilities fall short in several areas compared to the Ford, which immediately makes them underwhelming. Take the Ford's Sea Sparrow and Ram systems as an example. To compete with these, the Fujian reportedly features 3 18-cell guided missile launchers, potentially armed with HHQ-10 surface-to-air missiles. Compared to the Ford's heavy hitters, these missiles are less proven in combat and have a shorter range, 5.6 miles against subsonic targets and 3.7 miles against their supersonic counterparts. The Fujian may also be equipped with 2 RBU-6000 rocket launchers, which are designed to target submarines with contact-fused munitions. However, this system is considered somewhat outdated by modern standards. It's not a bad weapon per se, but it is inaccurate and thus unsuitable for precision strikes. There are indications that the Fujian might also include directed energy systems, possibly acoustic weapons, but these are not as well documented as the advanced countermeasures on the Ford. Overall, the Ford class is prepared to decisively fend off any potential threats. As for the Fujian, it might need a bit more than a few upgrades to catch up. For now, this vessel seems to be bringing a knife to a gunfight. The same sentiment persists when discussing the offensive capabilities of the 2 supercarriers. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the crown jewel of US naval might. With this in mind, it shouldn't be surprising that this colossal vessel has a carrier air wing that truly embodies a miniature air force, with each element meticulously designed to handle a wide array of combat scenarios. The Ford's air wing can carry up to 40 FA-18ERF Super Hornets, the backbone of its fighter strength, providing both air superiority and strike capabilities. Additionally, the carrier can accommodate up to 7 EA-18G Growlers, which specialize in electronic warfare and suppressing enemy air defenses, ensuring that the Ford maintains a dominant presence in both electronic and cyber warfare domains. Adding to this impressive arsenal are 12 MH-60R Romeo helicopters, which excel in anti-submarine warfare, and 8 MH-60S Seahawk helicopters, versatile aircraft capable of a range of missions from search and rescue to anti-surface warfare. The Ford's capabilities are further bolstered by its 5 E-2D Hawkeye Airborne Early Warning Aircraft (AEW), which extend the ship's radar coverage to hundreds of miles, providing critical early detection and tracking of potential threats. Completing the air wing is the C-2 Greyhound transport plane, several of them, essential for logistical support and ensuring the carrier remains supplied with both personnel and equipment. All in all, the USS Gerald R. Ford can carry up to 90 aircraft, a testament to its unmatched operational versatility and striking power. 90 aircraft is more than some countries have in their entire Air Force arsenal. According to the Global Firepower Index, the whole of the Czech Republic has 88, while Croatia has 81, and both countries are NATO members. 90 is also at least 50% more aircraft than the Fujian can carry. While estimates on the Fujian's air wing vary from 40 to 60 aircraft, either end of the range still pales in comparison to the Ford's impressive complement. As for the specifics, reports suggest that the Fujian's air wing might include a mix of J-15 fighters and potentially the next-generation J-35 stealth fighters. The KJ-600 airborne early warning aircraft is also expected to feature on the carrier, designed to offer capabilities similar to the US Navy's E-2 Hawkeye, although the systems are still in the experimental phase. It's also worth noting that the Fujian seems to have a way to go before efficiently cycling its air wing. This should come as no surprise, as its predecessors were only limited to one type of jet and helicopter. As Marquez of Global Data puts it, when the Fujian is able to reliably cycle flights of fighter patrols alongside the AEW and anti-submarine planes smoothly, then it'll be a very close competitor to US carrier operations. For now, the Ford remains a clear winner between the two, and the Fujian, a disappointment, plain and simple. So let's not even sugarcoat it. If a battle was to take place between these two supercarriers today, the Ford wouldn't just win, it would mop the floor with the Fujian. And that's not even where the differences between these two vessels end. Believe it or not, the worst is yet to come. Here are the biggest flaws of the Fujian and its crew that truly make it a floating disaster. Number 1. The efficiency of its flight operations. The USS Gerald R. Ford can launch, refuel, rearm, and recover aircraft with precision and speed unmatched by any other carrier in the world. The US Navy has perfected these cyclic flight operations over generations, amassing an enormous amount of experience. The Chinese Navy, on the other hand, has never carried out such high-intensity flight operations. In other words, the Fujian faces an insurmountable generational knowledge gap. For context, US sailors have been conducting high-volume flight operations since World War II. That was decades before the PLAN even expressed interest in operating an aircraft carrier, let alone actually owned one. That's why the Fujian simply lacks the infrastructure and experience to match the operational tempo necessary for maintaining air superiority in a battle. Number 2. The lack of quality elevators. Now you might think the Ford has 3 aircraft elevators, the Fujian has 2. Can one elevator truly make such a difference? Absolutely. Aircraft elevators are the heartbeat of a carrier's ability to launch and recover planes rapidly. Each elevator adds critical capacity to move aircraft between the hangar deck and the flight deck, ready for launch. The Ford's third elevator isn't just a convenience, it's a game changer. It allows the Ford to cycle through aircraft faster, maintaining a higher sortie rate, and rearm jets at lightning speed. In high-intensity operations, that one elevator could mean the difference between overwhelming an enemy with wave after wave of fighter jets or being outgunned and outnumbered. And it's not even just about the number of elevators, it's also about their construction. The Ford features electromagnetic elevators, which allow for quick transport of the aircraft. Just how much quicker are we talking? 3 times faster than the hydraulic elevators used on older carriers. And can you guess who uses hydraulic elevators? That's right, the Fujian. The Fujian also has another elevator-related bottleneck, namely it lacks speedy weapons elevators. Ford's 11 electromagnetic weapons elevators are the fastest and most reliable in the world, significantly enhancing its ability to redeploy ordnance. These elevators can bring up munitions at speeds that allow for more efficient rearming of jets during combat. Number 3. The lack of quality catapult systems. Both the Ford and Fujian are equipped with the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, or EMALS for short. For the Fujian, this is a huge deal, as it's the first Chinese vessel to feature EMALS, making a significant leap from the older steam-powered catapults. However, here's where the real difference lies. While the Fujian's EMALS is a first for China, the Ford has not only perfected the technology, but also incorporated it into a system designed for maximum efficiency and flexibility. That's why the Ford system is a fully operational, battle-tested platform, proven to handle a variety of aircraft types, carry heavier payloads, and require less maintenance. This carrier also features 4 catapults, one more than its Chinese wannabe contender, and we've already covered what kind of difference a single missing element makes. Number 4. The lack of advanced arresting gear. Arresting gear is the system used on carriers to safely stop and secure aircraft as they land on the flight deck. This system is crucial because the landing speeds of carrier-based aircraft can be pretty high, meaning that they could possibly overrun the flight deck and even crash without an effective means of arresting their momentum. For the Ford, this effective means is revolutionary water-arresting gear that reduces stress on aircraft, lowers maintenance costs, and increases the sortie generation rate, the latter of which is 33% higher than in the Nimitz class. The Fujian, however, still relies on traditional hydraulic arresting systems, which are prone to frequent leaks and breakdowns. In a high-tempo war scenario, the Ford's ability to recover aircraft with minimal downtime gives it a decisive edge. Number 5. The lack of dual-band radar capability. Traditional naval combat suites require several different radars to perform different tasks. For instance, one radar might track incoming threats, another might handle targeting, and yet another might search the horizon for distant objects. These separate systems then need to aggregate their data to provide a cohesive picture of the battle space. It sure would be great if one radar was able to perform multiple tasks at once, right? Well, that's precisely what the Ford's dual-band radar achieves. It allows the carrier to simultaneously track and engage multiple targets across different frequency bands, giving the Ford a much faster response time to incoming threats. This also reduces maintenance hours and simplifies upgrades. The Fujian, despite advances, doesn't possess this technology. How do we know this? Well, if they did, they would certainly announce it. Plus, China's radar systems generally lag behind, leaving the Fujian less capable of processing and responding to threats in real time, a critical vulnerability in naval warfare. Number 6. The lackluster propulsion system. The Achilles heel of the Fujian most likely lies in its propulsion system. Unlike the nuclear-powered Ford, the Fujian relies on steam turbines and diesel generators. This conventional setup not only limits its speed and range, but also warrants frequent refueling. The Ford, on the other hand, has twin A1B nuclear reactors that give it virtually unlimited endurance, capable of traveling at speeds exceeding 30 knots for decades without refueling. Yes, you heard that right. Decades. As long as it has food for the crew, fuel for aircraft, and munitions, it's good to go. And the Fujian? This carrier needs to refuel every few days to a week, severely limiting its operational range and combat readiness. This is especially disadvantageous in sustained conflict, where the ability to stay at sea and project power is vital. The Fujian's need to return to port for refueling every few days essentially makes it a sitting duck. Number 7. The lack of an underway replenishment network. Though this isn't a built-in flaw per se, it still represents a glaring weakness for the Fujian. As mentioned, the Ford can carry on as long as it has food, fuel, and munitions. Once it runs out of any of these, it can simply resupply at sea, thanks to the US Navy's extensive underway replenishment network. In contrast, the PLAN lacks a comparable system, and the Fujian would have to rely on periodic visits to ports for refueling and resupply. And as we already pointed out, this dependency is a crucial vulnerability, especially in a prolonged conflict scenario. Plus, let's not forget that China isn't exactly welcome in many strategic ports around the world. The country's geopolitical isolation essentially makes the Fujian a regional player, limited to operations near Chinese shores or artificial island chains. In a long-range conflict or global war scenario, this would severely limit its effectiveness, while the Ford could operate virtually anywhere in the world, sustained by the US Navy's and its allies' unparalleled logistical support. And there you have it, the rise and fall of China's biggest aircraft carrier, from its ambitious debut to its disastrous shortcomings. But let us ask you this: is the Fujian's ability to project power in the Indo-Pacific enough to call this project a success? We need to consider that the Ford must cover multiple theaters, so China's defensive posturing might be enough. Or do you believe that building the Fujian was nothing more than flushing a few $1 billion into the sea? Let us know in the comments section below. And while you're there, here's a bonus question. China is reportedly already building its next aircraft carrier, this time a nuclear-powered one. What are the chances this new supercarrier can give the almighty Ford a run for its money? We're looking forward to reading your predictions. Now go and check out how to sink Chinese aircraft carriers, or click this other video instead.